Jake Morrison had been working on Horizon's Gate for 2 years, maintaining the research station's systems with the kind of competence that kept him employed, but didn't win him any special recognition. He was good at his job, fixing environmental controls, patching aging infrastructure, keeping life support running in a station that was perpetually one failed component away from critical emergency. It was honest work, unglamorous but essential, which is how he found himself in the astrophysics lab for the third time that week, tools spread across the floor, diagnosing why the environmental controls kept failing in this particular section. "I appreciate your patience with our dysfunctional systems," a voice said from behind him, melodic, carrying harmonics his translator struggled to render properly. Jake looked up to find Kes standing there, Dr. Kes Talon, the Velani astrophysicist whose lab he'd been frequenting. She was holding 2 coffee mugs, one of which she offered to him. "Human coffee, prepared how you mentioned preferring it during our last conversation. 2 sugars, minimal cream. Is that correct?" "That's perfect, actually. Thank you." Jake accepted the mug, surprised she'd remembered. Most scientists treated maintenance techs like mobile repair services rather than people worth remembering details about. "And your environmental controls aren't dysfunctional. They're just old. This whole section needs upgraded systems, but budget constraints mean we're patching legacy infrastructure that should have been replaced 5 years ago." "That sounds frustrating for you professionally." Kes settled onto a lab stool, her long ears, those distinctive Velani features, angling toward him with what he was learning meant focused attention. "Continuously repairing systems require replacement rather than patches. It's the job. I signed up knowing this station prioritizes research over infrastructure." Jake took a grateful sip of coffee. She really had prepared it exactly right. "Besides, repeated failures in your lab mean I get to visit regularly, and you're significantly more pleasant company than most of the scientists I work with." "Because I provide coffee." Her ears angled in ways that might have been amusement. "Because you treat me like an actual person rather than an inconvenient necessity who's interrupting important work." Jake returned to his diagnostics, speaking while he worked. "Most researchers barely acknowledge maintenance staff. You ask questions about the systems, remember details I mention, make conversation instead of just tolerating my presence until repairs are complete. That seems like remarkably low standard for basic courtesy. You'd be surprised how many people fail to meet it." He finished his scan, confirming what he'd suspected. "Your environmental controls need complete replacement. I can patch this failure, but you'll be seeing me again in a few days when something else breaks. The whole system is cascading failures waiting to happen. Then I will see you again in few days. That is not terrible outcome from my perspective." She stood, moving closer to observe his work. "You explain repairs in ways that help me understand station systems better. That is valuable for someone whose expertise is theoretical astrophysics rather than practical engineering." Jake felt warmth that had nothing to do with the coffee. Kes was brilliant. He'd read some of her published research despite understanding maybe 15% of it, and beautiful in ways that transcended species aesthetics. Her long ears expressed emotions her controlled face sometimes hid. Her presence commanded attention without arrogance, and her voice carried those harmonics that made his chest resonate pleasantly. He'd been attracted to her since their second meeting, when she'd asked genuinely interested questions about how life support systems worked instead of just impatiently waiting for him to leave. But attraction didn't mean possibility. She was Dr. Kes Talon, astrophysicist with credentials he couldn't pronounce. He was Jake Morrison, maintenance tech with vocational training and competent hands. They inhabited different worlds that happened to overlap in this lab with its failing environmental controls. "You're very kind to tolerate my frequent visits," Jake said, finishing his patch and starting to pack his tools. "Most people would be annoyed having maintenance in their workspace this often. I am not tolerating your visits. I am enjoying them. Her ears angled forward with what looked like emphasis. You make repairs less disruptive and more interesting through conversation and explanation. Well, I'm glad to be interesting instead of just disruptive. Jake stood, accepting his now empty coffee mug back from where he'd set it. I'll put in another request for complete system replacement, but don't hold your breath. Budget meetings are in 3 months, and infrastructure improvements never win against flashy research proposals. Then I will see you again when next component fails. Kess walked him to the lab door, unnecessary courtesy that she performed every time he visited. Thank you for continued repairs and for tolerating my questions about your work. Your questions aren't things I tolerate. They're things I enjoy answering. Jake surprised himself with the honesty. You're good company, Dr. Talon. These visits are the highlight of my maintenance rotation. Her ears shot up, surprise clear in the gesture, and her skin flushed colors his limited knowledge of Vellani expressions couldn't interpret. That is, very kind thing to say, thank you. Jake left the lab feeling lighter than when he'd arrived, despite the certainty he'd be back fixing something else in a few days. 3 days later, like clockwork, another component failed. Jake returned with his tools and growing suspicion that the universe was being kind by giving him excuses to see Kess regularly. We really need to get you new systems, he said, diagnosing the latest failure while Kess prepared coffee. 2 sugars, minimal cream, exactly right despite him only mentioning his preference once. Budget constraints mean we patch rather than replace. You explained this previously. Kess handed him the mug, settling into what had become their routine. I have accepted that my lab's environmental controls will remain dysfunctional for foreseeable future. You're handling the constant disruptions very gracefully. Jake accepted the coffee. Most people would be filing complaints by now, demanding better systems, making someone's life difficult over repeated failures. Failures are not your fault. They are a result of institutional underinvestment in infrastructure. Her ears angled with what he was learning meant patient acceptance. And as I mentioned previously, your visits are not terrible outcomes. They are opportunities for interesting conversation. You're going to spoil me, Jake joked, sipping his perfectly prepared coffee. Bringing me coffee exactly how I like it, always being happy to see me even though I'm basically just delivering news that your lab systems are held together with optimism and emergency patches. I'm starting to think you love me. He said it lightly, teasingly, just friendly banter between colleagues who developed comfortable rapport. He didn't mean anything by it except acknowledgement of her unusual kindness toward maintenance staff. Kess froze completely. Her ears shot straight up, shock clear in the gesture. Her skin flushed through colors his limited knowledge couldn't interpret, but that looked significant. She set down her coffee mug with careful precision, her movements controlled in ways that suggested she was deliberately managing herself. How did you know? She asked quietly. Jake laughed, thinking she was playing along with the joke. Know what? That you appreciate good maintenance work. That you're the only scientist on this station who treats tech crew like actual people instead of, he stopped, actually looking at her expression. Wait, are you okay? Because she wasn't joking. Her ears were trembling, her skin patterns were shifting through what looked like distress and vulnerability mixed together, and she was looking at him with intensity that made his breath catch and his heart rate accelerate. Guess, you said I love you. You phrased it as joke, but you were correct. Her voice remained steady despite the emotion broadcasting through her ear positions. How did you know? I have been so careful to maintain professional boundaries, to not make you uncomfortable with emotions you presumably do not reciprocate. How did you perceive what I was trying to hide? Jake's brain executed complete shutdown. That was a joke. I wasn't actually suggesting. His ability to form coherent sentences abandoned him entirely. You love me, actually love me, not as continuation of the joke. Yes. For approximately 3 months now, though I have tried to suppress visible signs because cross-species romantic feelings are complicated, and you are human, and I am Vellani, and we are colleagues, which makes any relationship inappropriate by most professional standards, and she stopped herself, ears flattening with what looked like embarrassment. I should not have confirmed this. Please forget this conversation happened. I will request different maintenance technician for my lab to avoid making you uncomfortable with continued contact. No, wait, don't do that. Jake abandoned his tools completely, moving to face her directly. I don't want to forget this conversation. I want to understand it. You actually love me. Like romantic love, the real feelings kind. Is there another interpretation of love statement I should have considered? Her ears angled with confusion mixed with residual distress. You said I love you. I confirmed that observation was accurate. Was I misunderstanding human communication conventions? No, you understood correctly. I didn't expect you to actually. Jake ran his hand through his hair, trying to organize thoughts that were refusing to cooperate. I was joking because I didn't think there was any possibility you felt that way. You're brilliant astrophysicist with probably 6 advanced degrees. I'm maintenance tech who fixes broken things. Why would you love me? Because you are kind. Because you explain complex mechanical concepts in ways that help me understand station systems better. Because you laugh at my jokes even when translation makes them somewhat nonsensical. Because you treat me as person rather than just scientist whose lab keeps malfunctioning. Her ears angled toward him with desperate sincerity. Because being near you makes me happy in ways my research never achieves. Because I think about you when you are not present. Because my cardiovascular rate increases when I hear your voice approaching. Because I want to know everything about you beyond our professional interactions. That is why I love you. Jake stared at her, his mind struggling to process the impossible reality that the brilliant, beautiful Vellani scientist he'd been half in love with for months apparently loved him back, and had been trying to hide it. I need you to know something, he said carefully, choosing honesty over self-protection. That joke, it wasn't actually a joke in my heart even though I phrased it as one. I've been attracted to you since our second conversation. I think about you constantly. I volunteer for calls to your lab specifically because it means I get to see you. I've been suppressing my feelings because I thought there was no possibility someone like you could be interested in someone like me. You have been suppressing feelings, for me. Her ears shot forward, hope replacing distress in her expression. You were attracted to me and did not say anything. Because you're Dr. Talon, brilliant astrophysicist, and I'm Jake Morrison, maintenance tech who fixes your broken environmental controls. It seemed impossible that you could be interested. That is exactly what I thought about you potentially being interested in me. Kes made a sound that might have been Vellani laughter. We are both foolish, apparently, suppressing mutual attraction because we both assumed the other could not possibly reciprocate. So what happens now? Jake asked, his heart racing with possibilities. Now that we've both accidentally admitted we love each other. Now we determine if love that developed during professional relationship can become something more personal. Her ears angled toward him with determination mixed with vulnerability. If you want that, if I did not misunderstand and you genuinely have romantic feelings that align with mine. I want that, definitely want that. Jake moved closer. But I need to know, when you say love, what does that mean for Vellani? Because for humans it's pretty significant word. For Vellani, love means choosing someone's well-being over personal convenience, wanting their happiness even when it conflicts with yours, integrating them into future planning automatically. Her skin flushed colors that must mean something important. It means I have been imagining future that includes you for 3 months and trying very hard not to let that show in my behavior. It means your casual joke accidentally revealed truth I was attempting to hide. It means yes, Jake Morrison, I love you, And apparently I have terrible poker face about emotional concealment despite my best efforts. Jake laughed, genuine, delighted sound. You have terrible poker face. Your ears gave you away completely just now. They were broadcasting shock and vulnerability and hope so clearly that even I could read them despite my limited knowledge of Vellani body language. Vellani ears are unfortunately very expressive. Controlling them requires significant conscious effort that apparently failed completely when you made your joke. Her ears angled in what might have been self-deprecation. I thought I was maintaining professional composure successfully. My ears betrayed me before I could control my verbal response. I'm glad they did. We might have continued pretending we were just friendly colleagues indefinitely if your terrible poker face hadn't revealed the truth. Jake reached for her hand carefully. So where do we go from here? Because I'm in love with you too, and I'd very much like to explore what that means beyond me fixing your environmental controls while we both pretend we're not attracted to each other. We proceed carefully, Kes said, her hand tightening on his. We acknowledge mutual feelings, establish parameters for relationship that respects both our professional situations, and see where honest emotional connection leads us. That sounds very systematic and Vellani. That is because I am Vellani and have been thinking about this possibility for 3 months while trying to suppress my feelings. Her ears angled with what was definitely amusement now. I have had significant time to consider how relationship with you might work practically if you ever indicated reciprocal interest. Your accidental joke simply accelerated timeline for discussion I was eventually planning to initiate. You were planning to tell me. Jake felt warmth spreading through his chest, even though it was risky and could have made everything awkward. Eventually, once I determined optimal approach that minimized potential for discomfort if you did not reciprocate. She moved closer, their joined hands becoming bridge between them. But your joke forced immediate honesty rather than allowing extended careful planning. That is probably better outcome. Vellani can overplan emotional matters to point of paralysis. Then I'm glad my joke timing was accidentally perfect. Jake closed the remaining distance between them. I love you, Kes. I'm terrified about the complications, excited about the possibilities, and completely certain that I want to explore this with you. I love you, Jake. I'm also experiencing fear and excitement in equal measure. But I am certain that what I feel is real and worth pursuing despite complications. Her ears angled toward him with focus that felt different from their previous interactions, more intimate, more personal, no longer constrained by pretense of purely professional courtesy. They stood there in her lab, surrounded by the malfunctioning environmental controls that had brought them together, both of them processing the impossible reality that a casual joke had revealed feelings they'd been suppressing for months. Sometimes the most important truths emerge through accidental honesty, Jake thought, through terrible poker faces and joke timing that forces confession of carefully hidden emotions. He joked that she loved him. She'd whispered, "How did you know?" Because her feelings were too strong to hide anymore, and everything in both their lives was about to change because of that single moment of unintended truth-telling. The confession changed everything while somehow changing nothing fundamental. Jake still maintained station systems. Kes still researched stellar phenomena. But now there was context, acknowledgement, permission to be more than friendly colleagues pretending they weren't attracted to each other. We should establish parameters, Kes said during their first official not just colleagues evening together. Jake had brought dinner to her quarters, human and Vellani food both, trying to find overlap in their dietary preferences. Parameters for what exactly? Jake was still adjusting to the reality that this was happening, that the woman he'd been falling for actually loved him back. For this relationship. What we want from it, what we expect, what boundaries we need to maintain given that we work on same station in related but not overlapping capacities. Her ears angled with characteristic precision. Vellani approach relationships systematically. We establish mutual understanding of expectations before proceeding to deeper emotional or physical intimacy. That's very organized. Humans are usually messier about it, more impulsive. Jake was learning to read her ear positions more accurately, interpreting the subtle movements. Right now, she was broadcasting careful hope mixed with nervousness. But I like your approach. Let's establish parameters. Parameter 1. We acknowledge mutual romantic feelings and desire to explore relationship beyond professional courtesy. Her voice carried the same precision she brought to her research. Do you agree with this foundational parameter? Absolutely agreed. I love you, you love me. We both want to see where this goes. Parameter 2. We maintain appropriate professional behavior during work hours. Your maintenance duties do not create special treatment for my lab. My scientific authority does not influence your work assignments or priority. Her ears angled seriously. We keep work professional. Makes sense. We don't want accusations of impropriety or favoritism. Jake appreciated her thinking through the practical complications. Agreed. Parameter 3. We communicate clearly about comfort levels as relationship develops. Neither species assumes they understand the other's signals or desires without explicit verbal confirmation. Kess's ears angled with what he recognized as vulnerability now. I do not want to make you uncomfortable by moving faster than humans typically progress in relationships. And I do not want my own cultural expectations to create pressure you do not feel prepared to handle. Agreed completely. Clear communication, regular check-ins, no assumptions about what the other wants or needs. Jake reached across their shared meal to take her hand. Parameter 4, if I can add one. We acknowledge this is complicated because we're different species with different cultural frameworks for relationships, and we commit to figuring it out together rather than giving up when complications inevitably arise. That was not one of my planned parameters, but it is excellent addition. Her ears lifted with pleasure at his contribution. Agreed. Parameter 5. We acknowledge that I am deeply in love with you and have been trying unsuccessfully to hide it for months, and you are apparently attracted enough to me to not care that I accidentally revealed that I was happy whenever you arrived for repairs, that I was disappointed when you needed to leave, that I found you physically attractive and was trying not to make that obvious, that I was listening to everything you said with focus that went well beyond professional courtesy. She demonstrated, her ears moving through various positions. These are affection, interest, attraction, desire for continued company. I have been broadcasting all of that for months without verbal acknowledgement. I wish I'd learned to read your ears sooner. Would have saved us both a lot of time thinking our feelings were one-sided. Jake squeezed her hand gently. Though maybe we needed that time, to build friendship before adding romance. Perhaps. Vellani believes strong relationships require friendship foundation first. Romance without basis of genuine liking and respect tends to fail when initial passion fades. Her ears angled forward with approval. We built friendship first, even if we were suppressing romantic feelings throughout. That is healthier foundation than immediate romantic pursuit without knowing each other as people. So you've been building foundation while secretly in love with me for 3 months. Yes, making certain I actually liked you as person before pursuing romantic feelings that might have been temporary attraction. Her ears angled honestly. Some Vellani develop attraction quickly but struggle with long-term compatibility because they did not establish friendship first. I wanted to be certain what I felt was genuine connection rather than temporary fascination with attractive human male who is kind to me. And your conclusion after 3 months of careful observation. My conclusion is that I like you even more than I am attracted to you, which by Vellani standards indicates extremely compatible potential partnership. She stood, moving to sit beside him instead of across. May I demonstrate something? It requires physical contact beyond hand-holding. Yes, absolutely yes to more physical contact. Jake's heart rate increased noticeably. How Vellani show affection when we have permission to be less restrained than professional setting requires. She cupped his face gently, her cooler touch sending pleasant electricity through his nervous system. We express emotion through touch more than verbal declaration in early relationship stages. May I show you what my feelings look like in physical form? Please do. Kes kissed him, the sensation different from kissing humans, cooler and somehow more intentional, like every movement was communicating something specific beyond just physical pleasure. Her ears shifted throughout the kiss, expressing emotions he was beginning to interpret. When they separated, Jake was breathless and probably broadcasting his own reactions through body language she could definitely read. That was incredible, he managed. What were your ears saying just now? Because they were moving constantly and I want to understand what I'm not reading clearly yet. They were saying that kissing you exceeds my expectations. That your response to my touch makes me happy. That I want to do this frequently going forward. That I am relieved and grateful you reciprocate my feelings with similar intensity. Her ears angled in ways that carried obvious affection now. That I love you and am glad we both have terrible poker faces about hiding our feelings from each other. Your poker face was terrible. Mine was apparently non-existent since I was attracted to you and you knew it. Jake pulled her closer. How long did you know I was interested before I made that accidental joke? Approximately 6 weeks. Your body language when you arrived for repairs was very transparent. Increased attention, prolonged eye contact, frequent smiling, finding excuses to extend our conversations beyond necessary repair discussion. Her ears angled with amusement. You were not subtle about your attraction. You simply never verbalized it, so I assumed you were choosing not to act on temporary interest or that you were attracted but did not believe I could reciprocate. I didn't believe you could reciprocate. You're brilliant scientist. I'm maintenance tech. The social distance seemed insurmountable. Jake kissed her again, reveling in the freedom to do so. I'm glad we were both wrong about that insurmountable distance. Social distinctions are less significant than genuine connection. You make me happy in ways my professional achievements never have. That matters more than arbitrary categorization of relationship appropriateness. She settled against him comfortably. I love you, Jake Morrison. Your profession is irrelevant to that feeling. Your kindness, intelligence, and genuine interest in me as person rather than scientist, those matter. The rest is just social construction. I love you too, and I'm going to keep being terrible at hiding that from now on since there's no point in poker faces anymore. Jake felt profound contentment settling over him. This is real, right? You actually love me and we're actually doing this. This is real. I love you. We are pursuing relationship with clear parameters and mutual understanding. Her ears angled with certainty. And I am very happy about this development even if it required my catastrophic failure at emotional concealment to initiate it. They spent the evening together, talking, laughing, exploring the boundaries of their new acknowledged relationship with careful enthusiasm. Jake learned more about reading her ear positions, their nuances and meanings. Kes learned about human needs for verbal affirmation even when body language is clear. And both of them learned that what they'd built during months of professional friendship created strong foundation for romance that was emerging naturally from genuine connection and mutual affection. Thank you, Jake said as the evening wound down, for being brave enough to answer honestly when I accidentally asked if you loved me, for not deflecting or making it into joke when you could have, for giving us this chance. Thank you for making joke with terrible timing that forced my confession. Kes's ears angled with affection. For loving me back. For not being deterred by my species or profession or any of the complications inherent in cross-species relationship. For building friendship with me before we acknowledged romance. For everything. They held each other, Two people from different species who'd found unexpected connection through failing environmental controls and accidental confessions prompted by terrible poker faces and jokes with perfect timing. Sometimes the best relationships begin with unintended honesty, Jake thought, with someone asking how you knew they loved you because their feelings were too strong to successfully hide anymore. He joked about her loving him. She'd whispered, "How did you know?" Because concealing her emotions had become impossible, and everything beautiful in both their lives was beginning from that moment of accidental truth-telling between two people who'd been falling in love while pretending they were just friendly colleagues. Continuing the story. 3 months into their acknowledged relationship, Jake and Kes had settled into comfortable partnership that felt both natural and remarkable. They'd learned each other's rhythms, her need for systematic planning balanced by his more spontaneous approach, his verbal expressiveness teaching her that humans needed words even when body language was clear, her ear positions teaching him that Vellani communicated constantly through physical expressions carrying as much meaning as speech. "Your colleagues know about us," Jake mentioned during dinner at his quarters. They alternated spaces now, creating shared routines across both their homes. "My research team is aware, yes. Vellani are observant about emotional states. Several colleagues have commented on my improved mood correlation with your presence." Her ears angled with amusement. "Does it bother you that others know?" "Not at all. I'm actually kind of proud that someone like you chose someone like me." Jake moved closer on their shared couch. "My maintenance crew has been making jokes about how often I volunteer for calls to the astrophysics section. Pretty sure everyone knows why I'm so eager to fix things in your area. Does that create professional problems for you?" Her ears angled with concern. "No, if anything, it's made me more popular because people find it cute. Apparently watching someone obviously in love makes even cynical maintenance tech sappy." He pulled her against him comfortably. "What about your side? Any problems with Vellani colleagues about the cross-species relationship?" "Some initial concern. Vellani typically partner within species due to cultural compatibility and biological similarity, making relationships less complicated." Her ears drooped slightly. "But most have been supportive once they observed how well we communicate despite our differences. My family was more challenging to convince." "You told your family about me." Jake hadn't known she'd taken that step. "How did they react?" "My parents were concerned about complications of cross-species partnership. They questioned whether human could understand Vellani emotional needs, whether relationship with non-Vellani could provide long-term stability I require for healthy life." Her ears communicated remembered discomfort. They were not hostile, just protective and skeptical about viability. "What convinced them we could work?" "I explained how attentive you are to my communication needs. How you ask questions rather than making assumptions. How you have learned to read my ear positions with remarkable accuracy, despite knowing me for relatively short time compared to lifetime of Vellani cultural immersion." Pride entered her ear angles. "I told them you make me happier than anyone I dated within my own species." That was compelling argument they could not easily dismiss. "You dated other Vellani before me." Jake experienced curiosity rather than jealousy. "I didn't know that. How were those relationships?" "Several. None lasted longer than few months. Vellani courtship is very formal, very structured. Partners are expected to meet specific compatibility criteria, fulfill particular social roles, maintain proper behavior according to extensive cultural standards." She made dismissive sound. "I found it exhausting, constant performance of appropriate Vellani relationship behavior without space for genuine spontaneous emotion. And this relationship isn't exhausting for you. This is liberating. You do not expect me to perform anything. You ask what I need, listen to answers, adjust based on my actual comfort rather than cultural assumptions about what Vellani females should prefer." She shifted to look at him directly. You make me feel seen as individual rather than as example of properly behaving Velani female conforming to cultural relationship scripts. That is rare and valuable. You make me happy too. Happier than I knew relationships could be. Jake kissed her forehead gently. I love you. Is that too human forward to say so frequently? Do Velani prefer less verbal declaration? Velani prefer demonstration over declaration traditionally, but I am learning to appreciate human verbal expressiveness. Say it as often as you feel it. I will continue showing you through my ears and actions what words sometimes fail to adequately capture for Velani emotional expression. Your ears are very eloquent. I'm getting decent at reading them now. Jake traced patterns on her arm idly. What are they saying right now? That I am content with current situation. That I appreciate your attentiveness to my communication preferences. That I am considering whether tonight is appropriate timing to discuss possibility of more serious long-term commitment. Her ears angled vulnerably. That I have been thinking about future that includes you permanently and wondering if you have been thinking similarly. Jake's heart rate increased noticeably. I have been thinking about that. About long-term future with you, what that might look like practically, whether you'd want that kind of commitment with me. Velani do not typically commit to permanent partnerships quickly by human timeline standards. We have extensive courtship periods, careful compatibility evaluation, systematic approach to determining whether two individuals are optimally suited for life partnership. She paused significantly. But I already know the answer. 3 months of official relationship, 6 months of knowing you before that. I know you are who I want to build permanent future with. Are you asking me to marry you, or whatever Velani equivalent is? I am informing you that when you are ready to have that conversation seriously, I am ready to have it. No pressure, no expectation of immediate decision, but I want you to know where I stand emotionally. Her ears remained steady despite discussing emotionally charged topic. I love you. I want permanent partnership with you. When you are ready, if you become ready, I am ready. Jake processed this carefully. Velani commit faster than I expected based on your description of typical courtship. Velani are systematic but not necessarily slow once we reach certainty. We observe carefully, evaluate thoroughly, then commit decisively once we are certain of compatibility. Her ears angled honestly. I am certain. Take whatever time you need to reach your own certainty level. No pressure whatsoever. I love you. I'm not uncertain about that emotion. Jake pulled her closer protectively. I'm just processing that you're already at permanent commitment certainty while I'm still adjusting to having you in my life at all. Give me time to catch up to your certainty. Not because I don't want that future, but because I want to make that decision thoughtfully rather than impulsively. Take all the time you need. I am patient and I am not going anywhere. She kissed him gently. I will love you whether you need 3 more months or 3 more years to reach certainty about permanent commitment. My feelings are not conditional on your timeline matching mine. Thank you for being understanding about my need for time. Jake held her close, feeling profound gratitude for her patience. And thank you for being honest about where you stand emotionally. Knowing you're already certain about permanent future helps me understand how serious this is for you. Very serious, most serious relationship of my life. Her ears communicated absolute sincerity. But I can wait for you to reach matching certainty. We built strong friendship first. We can build toward permanent partnership at pace that works for both of us. They spent the evening discussing what permanent partnership might look like, practical considerations about combining their lives, cultural expectations from both their species, how they'd navigate inevitable complications of cross-species bonding. It was systematic, very Velani in approach, but also deeply romantic in its assumption of shared future. I'm glad you told me you're ready, Jake said as evening wound down. Even though I need time, knowing where you stand helps me understand what we're building toward. Communication is foundation of successful partnership. Hiding my feelings would have been counterproductive. her ears angled affectionately. I love you, Jake Morrison. I am building toward permanent future with you, whether that future formalizes in 3 months or 3 years. The certainty of destination matters more than speed of arrival. Jake fell asleep that night thinking about permanent commitment, about futures that included Kess, about whether he was ready for that level of seriousness with someone. He'd only officially been dating for 3 months, but who he'd been falling for much longer. 3 months later, he reached his own certainty. They were in her quarters, comfortable in their established evening routine, when Jake made his decision. Remember when you said you were ready for permanent commitment? Conversation whenever I was ready. He took her hands, holding her gaze steadily. Yes, 3 months ago, you asked for time to reach your own certainty level. Her ears angled toward him with focused attention. Have you reached certainty? I have. I love you. I want to build life with you permanently. I want whatever form of bonding or partnership Vellani formalize for permanent commitment. Jake's voice was steady despite his racing heart. I'm ready for that conversation now. Ready for permanent future with you. Her ears shot straight up, pure joy clear in the gesture. You are certain, not feeling pressured by my earlier declaration. Completely certain. I've spent 6 months, 9 if you count before we made this official, learning you, falling deeper in love with you every day, imagining future that includes you permanently. Jake squeezed her hands. I'm ready. I want you permanently in my life. However Vellani formalized that, I want it with you. Vellani formalized partnerships through bonding ceremony and legal recognition of committed partnership. Similar to human marriage in practical terms, different in cultural specifics and ritual elements. She was glowing now, her skin shifting through colors he'd learned meant intense happiness. We should inform both our families, obtain station administration approval for official cohabitation status change, planned ceremony that respects both our cultural backgrounds appropriately. You've thought about this extensively. For 6 months, yes. I have been prepared since I told you I was ready for this conversation, just waiting patiently for you to reach matching certainty. Her ears angled with teasing affection. Vellani do not make declarations of permanent readiness casually. When I said I wanted life partnership with you, I meant I had already planned how that would work practically if you reached same conclusion. Then let's do it. Let's make this official and permanent. Jake pulled her into embrace. Let's build that future we've both been imagining. They spent the evening planning, discussing how to blend human and Vellani bonding traditions, when to inform families, how to navigate station bureaucracy for official partnership recognition. It was systematic and romantic in equal measure, very characteristic of how they approached everything together. I still can't believe this started because I made careless joke, Jake said during planning. I casually said, you love me, as throwaway teasing comment, and you accidentally revealed you actually did love me. Worst poker face in documented history of Vellani romantic concealment, Kess agreed with amusement. My ears betrayed me before I could control my verbal response appropriately. But I am grateful for catastrophically bad poker face. We might have continued suppressing mutual feelings indefinitely without that accidental revelation prompted by your joke. Best timing I've ever had for a joke, led directly to everything we have now. Jake kissed her gently. Thank you for having terrible poker face about your feelings, for answering honestly when you could have deflected, for giving us this chance at permanent partnership. Thank you for loving me back, for not being deterred by complications, for reaching certainty about permanent future. Her ears angled with deep affection. For making joke with perfect accidental timing that forced confession I was too careful to initiate intentionally. Everything we have exists because your casual teasing created opening. I needed to reveal truth. They held each other. Two people from different species who'd found perfect compatibility through environmental control failures, developing friendship, terrible poker faces, and jokes that accidentally revealed carefully hidden truths. And now they were planning permanent future together, proving that sometimes the best relationships begin when someone asks, "How did you know?" Because their love had become impossible to successfully hide anymore. Final chapter completing the story. 6 months after reaching their mutual certainty about permanent commitment, Jake and Kes stood before assembled friends, family, and colleagues for their bonding ceremony. The ritual blended human marriage traditions with Vellani partnership customs, creating something unique to them that honored both their backgrounds. "I love you," Jake said during his vows, speaking to Kes while their witnesses observed. "I loved you before I joked about it. I loved you when you whispered, 'How did you know?' Because your terrible poker face betrayed feelings you were trying to hide. I loved you through 6 months of mutual uncertainty, followed by 6 months of building toward this moment. I will love you tomorrow and every day after as my bonded partner." "I love you," Kes responded, her ears angled in ways that needed no translation for anyone who knew Vellani body language. "I loved you before you joked about it, though I was trying desperately to hide that love behind professional courtesy. I love you now as we formalize permanent partnership. I will love you through whatever challenges cross-species bonding presents. Thank you for having terrible timing that forced me to reveal what I was trying to keep hidden. Thank you for loving me back when you could have been deterred by complications." Their ceremony was intimate, meaningful, witnessed by people who'd supported their unconventional partnership from its accidentally revealed beginning through its systematic progression toward permanent commitment. Years passed after that ceremony. They built life together, combined quarters accommodating both their needs, careers that flourished with mutual support, love that deepened rather than fading with familiarity and routine. They became example on the station for successful cross-species partnerships, proof that different backgrounds mattered less than genuine connection and mutual commitment to understanding each other. "Do you remember when we first met?" Jake asked during quiet evening at home, years into their bonded partnership. "When I came to fix your environmental controls, and you were just brilliant scientist I found attractive but thought was completely out of my league. I remember. You were kind, competent, treated me as person rather than just scientist requesting repairs." Her ears angled toward him with affection accumulated over years together. "I fell in love with you gradually, then suddenly, then spent months trying to hide it poorly while you remained oblivious to my terrible poker face. Then I made that stupid joke. You love me, like it was ridiculous, impossible scenario rather than truth you were trying to conceal." Jake pulled her against him on their shared couch. "And you said, 'How did you know?' Because your feelings were too strong to successfully hide anymore. Best catastrophic failure of emotional concealment in my life, led directly to everything we have now." She settled comfortably against him. "My ears betrayed me before I could control my response. I am grateful for that betrayal every day. I'm grateful for your terrible poker face, for my accidentally perfect joke timing, for you being brave enough to answer honestly instead of deflecting." He kissed her temple gently. "Everything good in my life traces back to that moment when you couldn't hide your love anymore. Everything good in my life traces back to your willingness to love me back despite complications." Her ears communicated contentment. "To your patience while I reached certainty, then your own journey to matching certainty. To our systematic building of partnership that honors both our natures while creating something new together." They sat in comfortable silence, living proof that sometimes the most profound relationships begin with jokes that accidentally reveal truth, with terrible poker faces that force honesty, with someone whispering, "How did you know?" Because their feelings became impossible to hide. Jake had joked, "You love me," as casual teasing between friendly colleagues. Kes had whispered, "How did you know?" Because 3 months of suppressing her love had failed completely in that moment of surprise. Everything beautiful in both their lives had grown from that accidental confession, prompted by joke and betrayed by ears that couldn't maintain deception anymore. They'd built extraordinary partnership from one moment of unintended honesty, proving that terrible poker faces can be gifts when they force revelation of feelings too strong to successfully conceal, that jokes can have perfect timing when they create openings for confessions waiting to emerge, that love often grows quietly before being revealed suddenly through questions that confirm what was being hidden. "I love you," Kess murmured, echoing sentiments from years of partnership. "How did you know?" Jake teased, echoing the question that had changed both their lives. "Because my ears are still terrible at hiding my feelings, even after years of trying." She demonstrated, her ears moving through positions that broadcasted affection clearly. "Because you still make me happy every day. Because permanent partnership with you remains best decision of my life. That is how I know I love you." "I love you too, for having terrible poker face that revealed truth, for answering honestly when you could have deflected, for building this life with me." He held her close. "For everything that started because I made joke and you couldn't hide your feelings successfully." They remained there together, two people from different species who'd found perfect compatibility through environmental control failures, developing friendship, accumulating affection, and one perfectly timed accidental confession that neither had intended, but that both were grateful for every day. Sometimes the best relationships begin with terrible poker faces and jokes that reveal truth they'd proven, with someone asking, "How did you know?" Because their love had become impossible to successfully conceal anymore. They'd built their lives from that foundation, and they were grateful for it every single day.